I'll also say this too.
You know, but
again, just as part of sort of the pre-chat in and around campaigns, all right? Now, I understand how serious the issue is, but you want to communicate with Australians clearly, exactly as Barnaby just did, rather than sort of with a lot of sort of po-face seriousness of it all.
I've been on the polling booths in the last 3 days, and two comments. When people come up and say, well, you're voting no, why? Give me a reason. I give them three reasons. One, because it's dividing the country on the basis of race, and we can't do that. Secondly, it will hand the sovereignty of the Parliament to the High Court, and nobody can predict what they will do. And thirdly, the division that has been caused by Albanese as the Prime Minister will be cemented into the Constitution. That is not good for this country. But if you look at what was happening on the ground, I was having nice conversations, as you usually do at a polling booth, with people handing out material. But what alarmed me was a young kid, a primary school kid who came along, tore down the no sign and started stomping on it and said, why are you voting no? And I said, because it's the right thing to do. And we then just picked it up. A kid in primary school? On the other hand, kids who were coming through who were in senior school, they were voting no. Well, they're not voting because they're not old enough, but they were no.
Well, see, it's interesting about this, right, because it does begin to dovetail us into the protests of the past couple of days. People using their kids. I know that this is meant to be the rhetorical device that says, well, someone think about the children, right, which was Reverend Lovejoy's wife in The Simpsons. That, of course, was a joke at the time. It's now become the way that many people try to fight their fights. We saw kids yesterday at the State Library in Melbourne in their school uniform holding up flags. We saw kids at the Opera House. The preacher celebrating was born here. Joe, how do we confront this? Where firstly, let's take the kids off the table as a way of trying to emote other people to agree with us. But secondly, as I was talking about before with James, 37% of people, just 37% of the people have pride in the country. Now, I know that pride in the country has been interpreted at different times. I'm not suggesting, it's Southern Cross tattoos for everyone. But that is a problem that I think leads to where we got this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember. I remember very clearly years ago having a conversation with a sort of Labor right thinker who just said, "Why isn't it left wing to be patriotic? You know, why? You know, and we are on a unity ticket on that front. I think this actually underscores why, or where rather, the Yes campaign has failed. When you say we're a great country and we want to be greater, and we can do this by making sure everyone has equal share in the greatness that we have to offer, you win votes, you make people feel good, you make them feel like they are doing something good for Indigenous people who are struggling. When you say we're a racist country that has a violent, dark history and you need to do this to atone for that, suddenly the voters are just running away like a flock of seagulls.
Joe, it is time for those old voices to move away. Jacinta Price presents a new way of looking at things. This is what the Voice is trying to do, Bronwyn. That modernity came, we've embraced it, there are opportunities for people. Do not divide us on race. Make sure that you take the opportunities and we make sure that people get the opportunity.
And I think that's fantastic, but just everyone else, I let everyone else finish. I'm the only person here saying yes, so just give me a shot. Right, firstly, when you talk about a racial divide or dividing people by race, there is already a racial divide in this country. If you're Indigenous, you live less than 8 years younger than everybody. You die 8 years earlier than everyone else. There are and it's in education, it's in health, it's in employment, it is everywhere, right? So that
Aboriginal people.
In the remote regional communities.
What's this grand Alexa, where apparently once this happens, this remarkable thing, it'll descend from heaven and all the answers will be there. Well,
literally no one is saying that. Literally nobody is saying that.
Just legislate it, and let the miracle happen. It's ridiculous that apparently that there's somehow a hidden knowledge that will only become evident to us when an unelected body it starts their rounds of Parliament House telling people basically how to
give you
run
plenty
the
of
show.
examples.
It's just absurd. It's an absurdity. And the big thing about what I'm getting all the time, I've been handing out for the last 2 days, I'm getting this. $400 million this is costing us?
Yes.
$400 million? We're going to pee that up against the wall. There is so much more we could have done with that money.
Well, it's only peed up against the wall if it's a no vote. But the point is that...
Well, funny thing about democracy, when you let people vote, one of two things might happen.
I respect the process. But speaking of democracy, if I could just finish, the reason why these systems have been failing Indigenous people is because you talk about going to the hospital, right? Often they don't like to use the healthcare system, or they're suspicious of the healthcare system.
Or they're living in remote areas where there is no hospital.
Because they think it's run by the white colonial oppressors or whatever. The Voice takes away that excuse. The same with interaction with the cops. The Voice takes away that anxiety. The same with the grog bans.
Oh my God.
With the grog bans,
This is the Annandale argument.
It was the inner suburban lefty wankers like the Greens who said you can't have grog bans, it's racist. The Indigenous leaders on the ground said no, we need them, otherwise all hell will break loose. They were not listened to. If that was actually amplified,
if there's an issue with poverty, I can assure you, Joe, it is just as evident for the white people living in the area as it is for the Aboriginal people living in the area. I tell you what, poverty does not discriminate. And if you go to the towns or the remote areas or the remote towns, the issue is intergenerational poverty, not intergenerational trauma, intergenerational poverty. Therefore, you must look after people in the circumstances you find them in, not by reason of the colour of their skin.
All right, guys, we've got to go. We could go all night. I apologise. I know we're in the final stages. I know we are. So look forward to talking about something else next week. Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it.